Hello and welcome to my workshop. So today we're going to be taking a VS410 Phoenix kit. We're building that out and adding a body. It's going to be a UAZ 469 military vehicle. Alright, so let's get started. This is my third Vanquish kit. The first two were Pro kits, and this is the Phoenix. I've been wanting to make a new comp truck for our local club, and this one seemed perfect. This kit is a bit different than the others. The kits seem to be shifting more towards mass-produced plastic parts, which I personally think is a good thing. The aluminum axles do look good, but the plastic slides over the rock so much better. The kit, even though different from the first two, shares one thing in common. The quality and attention to detail is on point. I also really appreciate the way the instructions are laid out. The first thing to build are the axles. Being portals, I expected it to be a bit of a pain. I was pleasantly surprised to find they were relatively straightforward. After the axles, the main center portions of the chassis are screwed together. I like to put everything on one side of the chassis and attach the other side last. I'm not sure if this is better, but it just seems like it's easier to me. This transmission is new, but starts off with the same base as the other one. This transmission is the best placed transmission of any kit out there, at least as far as having a chance for an interior. I know many kits lean heavy to a Lexan body with a thin interior pan. I'm happy to see that Vanquish embraced the scale aspect and made their chassis so it can accept a very realistic interior, at the same time as keeping the COG very low. If there's one complaint, and there always has to be one, it would be the shocks. I hear that there's a replacement now, but the spring adjustment was damn near impossible to get on. I struggled with this and later found out that it wasn't just me. I need to send them an email and see if I can get the replacement parts in the mail soon. The drive shafts, which have a very strong resemblance to wild boars, were put together. I then used my drill to screw on the links, which, like the other kits, are way overkill. So far, I have not had to adjust the length of any of my kits. If I did though, it wouldn't be as easy as with other ones. The Vanquish have the threads cut into the link instead of using a set screw. I am sure there are reasons that make this better, but from a modification standpoint, it makes it worse. It's fairly easy to shave a few millimeters off a standard link and retap the threads. Since this is part of the link, and steps up tremendously, it makes it impossible without a lathe. Like most of my recent builds, I went with a Reef's Raw 500 servo and a Hobbywing Axe ESC motor combo. These just seem to work, and I really like the way they are programmable. With all the major pieces put together, it's quick work to bolt them to the chassis. I decided to lock out the dig function and only utilize the overdrive in the transmission. I didn't have a low-profile servo on hand, so I just grabbed an old high-tech servo until I could get one ordered. The setup is pretty easy, but there is definitely an order of operation. If you get ahead of yourself, be prepared to backtrack a bit. I'm trying something new for this truck. Using a cheap Hobbywing 1060 as a winch controller is not new, but the winch I'm using is. First, I locate the 1060 in the rear and make accommodations for the wiring and for mounting the on-off switch. The winch I'm using is a gear motor from Prololu. This is the same physical size as the ones that come in the scale winches, but is rated for 12 volts. The last part of the kit I need is the cage, and it goes together easily. The reason I want to keep this is the body mounting hinge system. Plus, I want to make this a unique pre-runner style truck. A set of RC four-wheel drive tires are mounted up to some G-Made black Steely style wheels. For now, I use a stock foam, but as usual, these will be replaced with Crawler Innovation foams. With the kit together, now I can get to the real fun, building that UAZ 469 body. I start off with some MDF and trace the shape from a scaled up drawing. My benchtop sander does most of the work, followed by rotary tools and oscillating sander. The side panels are made from the front door back to the tailgate section as one piece. The doors are recessed in so the styrene will sink down into the grooves slightly. The fender forward will be a separate piece and then later glued together. I found that making raised sections, such as around the wheel wells, is better done by adding material. I often glue styrene strips to the body, but sometimes use 3D printed parts. When I'm making the panels, I try to work on each side incrementally until I get them finished. This way I can copy over key measurements as I go. I find this makes for parts that match up better than fully making one side at a time. After the parts are vacuum formed, there is quite a bit of work to get it ready to be glued together. First, I rough cut the part and then figure out where to make relief cuts. There isn't much of a draft angle, so I often have to design my part so it is cut away from the mold. After the parts are free, the edges need to be straightened and any imperfections sanded flat. To get a solid connection, the parts have to have a good engagement with each other. I thought about making a mold for the interior, but in the end decided scratch building one would be the quicker and easier way. I always leans towards what is quickest and easiest. The inner structure ties directly into the rear tube section. I then tie the two body panels to the center section. This allows me to work forward toward the pivot hinge. The goal is to tie this part in with the grill, but only time will tell how successful that will be. With the side and center structure in place, I start working on the hood. There are vents in the side I wanted to replicate, but just couldn't figure out a good way to pull it off. The vents are on a curved section, and the drawing that in Fusion 360 would be so far above my pay grade. So, I figured not having them would look better than me making them all butchered up. The grill is very simple since it's just flat. The only details are some cutouts in the center. Luckily, I was able to mount the Vanquish pivot hinge so it landed right between these openings. This saved me from making a custom one. The windshield and side panels are next. I didn't realize till I started working on this, but the door are just mirror copies from front to back. The idea is the front passenger door and window could be placed on the rear driver's spot. You can even see where the quarter windows are backwards in the rear door. I'm sure you still get some airflow, but it's kind of weird that basically it's behind where you sit. When I realized this, I decided to just make one side of the windows and vacuum form it twice. This not only saves me time, but ensures both sides are identical. One hood feature I was able to figure out is the small vent on the cowl. I designed and 3D printed a part which can be glued into an opening cut in the styrene. While I was in the cutting mood, I decided to mount the external hinges for the door. These were cut out with a razor blade and cleaned up with a file before gluing the 3D printed parts in place. As there would be no roof or roll cage, I wanted something to protect the windshield and window frames. So stainless steel capillary tubing was bent so it followed the window contours. There is just enough of a slot around the windows to set in this tubing. Once in place, I glue it in solid to the body before sanding and filling so the tubing can no longer be seen. A similar piece is placed across the windshield. And just like that, I have a hidden roll cage and the look I really wanted. I still have a good amount of work on this body, but I am really liking the way it's turning out. I look forward to getting this finished, but until then, I'll see you on the rocks.